So this is my inner sanctum. This is where I keep my money. Shh, don't tell anybody. Here's all my money. I got 40, 60, 50, 60, 70, 80. 80 grand there. That's 5. And that's 2. That's pretty much just money.
Carrying large amounts of cash is just part of what we do. I'll never forget the first time I went to a casino with $800 and I thought the entire world was staring at me. I knew that I had $800 in my pocket. I thought everyone else knew it. You're walking through the parking lot, looking behind your back, and it was a rush. 1 year later, we're carrying $80,000 in our pocket, and you don't even notice.
At first, it's like, somebody's gonna mug me. But then, I look at like what I'm wearing, and I'm like, my shoes have holes in them, and I'm like, nobody looks at me and says, oh, that guy's got money. Nobody's gonna mug me, you know?
It's really weird having money in your freezer or, you know, tucked under your mattress. This is a company completely built on trust.
They put thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars have passed through my hands.
I could have stole a lot of money. Maybe I did. I mean, maybe I have. I don't know. Maybe it's invested somewhere. They'll never know, though.
Transporting and carrying the money, though, is a very big issue that we deal with on our team. It's difficult to carry, and if you just think of pocket space, it ends up being quite an issue, just getting through airports.
You kind of have to sneak the money through.
I have these leg strap things, and they just kind of go around your calf, and you can basically get, you know, whatever, something like 40 to 50,000 if you've got baggy pants on strapped in there.
There's almost this impression that it's illegal.
I've been stopped 3 times at the airport and told, like, what's in your pockets? Empty your pockets.
I think the big impression is if you have money, you're a drug dealer.
This is from the Pennsylvania State Police, and they stop me because they think I deal drugs. I don't.
Yeah, I usually carry it in my bag when I leave home, check into the ticket counter, and then I make a stop in the bathroom and then transfer it all into my waistline. Or if it's summertime and I've got cargo shorts on or whatever, I'll load those up, and then I just head through security there and pray I don't get stopped.
We're dealing with betting hands and winning and losing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You have to divorce yourself from what it really is, or else you'll go crazy. I love it that there's $111,000 in here, a bunch of sand.
It's crazy to say this, but I had lost all of my, I stopped looking at that as money.
It's really weird, but it's like Monopoly money. I used to think about money differently. Money was a big deal at one time, and now money is just money.
Hey guys, so that's a little bit about me. I have a tough job here today. I'm supposed to be wrapping this conference up for the day and merging Blackjack, faith, and entrepreneurialism. Those 3 things. That's my job today. And money. It's great to be here. Thank you guys for having me. I want to show you guys a few pictures of my Blackjack days, because those are the stories that people are the most excited about. So this is one of the first ones. This is how the casinos knew me. This is called a flyer, and this is what they sent out to say, you're not welcome here anymore. We used to collect these things. It was actually kind of fun. So in this next one here, you can't really see, but in the bottom it lists all my known associates. You guys might recognize some of those names. The funny thing about our team, by the way, is that it was mostly pastors, Christians. We had some worship leaders on there. So more time than we have right now to get into. A few other pictures. So this was, you guys talk about having a desk job. This was our desk job. At night, we would come back to our hotel, and this is what it looked like. Those purple chips are $500. And those are stacks of $5,000 and $10,000. The biggest complaint on our team had to do with transferring and counting $100 bills. Talk about a first world problem. So we had ways that we rubber banded them, we had ways that we transported it, and as they talked about in the video, actually transporting and even just moving the money was actually quite a difficult thing. Here's another picture. Some people, we didn't quite mention in the intro, but everything we did was 100% legal. Not illegal, legal. Now, maybe the best decision, I'm not going to defend that. But this was one of our more exciting moments. We had $110,000 seized by the US government, and it was my full-time job for a month to try and get the money back. So these are 2 checks that I'm very proud of. After a month, they sent me 2 checks totaling $100,000. They fined us $10,000, but I got it back. So this is kind of one of my favorite pictures. And this is also one of my favorite pictures. It's kind of an odd one. We're in a hot tub. And on the left, you'll see my mom. And in the top right, you'll see my wife and 3 or 4 of my kids on the left. And you'll see 3 people in the front. Those people played for our team. And in that yellow bag in the chair, there's $180,000 cash. So that was how the type of things we had to think about. What do you do with money, $180,000, when you're going in the hot tub? Well, you don't put it in a locker with a little tiny master lock. So we had to carry this stuff around. It was actually quite a pain figuring out how to just deal with cash. These are some of the pictures that are kind of the most notorious for our team. These are some of my outfits of what I looked like, the different things that we did. Most of these outfits were actually to entertain fellow team members, not to disguise from casinos, though. And I'll tell one story about that center one. You can't really see it, but I dressed up like the guy who invented card counting. He came from MIT to go to a casino. So this was kind of the ultimate, screw you to the casino. And I needed some glasses, but I'm like, I'm not going to buy glasses for 2 hours. So I went to LensCrafters, and I'm like, I'm going to buy these, and then I know you guys have done some of this. I'm going to return them, when I'm done with them. So I go there, and they have the lenses already there, and they're just kind of like the sample lenses, and they had all those stickers on them that say, sample lens. So I just bought them, and I said, I can return these in 30 days. I said, yeah, no problem. So I go to the casino, and I'm in the parking lot, and I'm going to take off these stickers, and I realize they're not stickers. They're actually screen printed on the lens. So I played a whole session of Blackjack with, it says, sample lens, do not use, not real glass or something in the casino. So that's a little bit of the more glorious side of what we experienced in card counting. And my life was not always that way, though. I didn't start that way. I started in a church. I grew up as going to Christian churches, and I was very interested in following or trying to figure out what it was that God wanted. And the things that I knew at that time were very much related to professional ministry. That's how I thought of it. I thought I want to be a pastor. And being a pastor wasn't even hardcore enough. No offense. But I wanted to be a missionary. I wanted to have the least of the least because I felt like following God should be hard. And following God, if it's hard, it must mean having the least amount of money as possible. So some of these mindsets influenced me. This talk is titled, How Blackjack Saved My Soul, which is kind of a funny title for a talk. And I'm very glad they let me title that. And I'm not exaggerating, but I'm also not talking about just hell. Okay? It didn't save my soul from hell, but it did save my religious viewpoints of money. And for entrepreneurs and people like you folks who are thinking about how to create value, how to make money, I think it's really important that we address where we religiously start off thinking about money. And for me, I'll tell you two quick stories. One was when I got married, we didn't have a mattress for the first 3 years of our marriage because I was convinced I didn't want to be comfortable. I mean, we're training for the mission field, right? And my wife is here. Sorry, I was young. But that was what I thought God wanted me, was to spend as little amount as possible. When we had a 1-year-old kid, and we decided to bike across the country. And our budget, and they said this when they introduced me, was $10 a day for the 3 of us. And that's for everything. That was food. So this is where I came from. And even then, I felt guilty for almost everything that I spent. I would go to a restaurant, and I would, by nature, kind of order the cheapest thing on the menu. And I want to share with you guys where I learned this way of thinking. It was the church. And I'm not saying the church teaches it in its printed material, and I'm not saying that it's in the Bible. But this type of behavior, where I learned to think and spend this way, I learned this way of thinking from the church and from the Bible college I went to and from hearing the missionaries talk and hearing the pastors talk. And it was what was said, and it was what was not said. So what I'm hoping to share with you guys today is what I learned from Blackjack about casinos, about money, even about being an entrepreneur. And I hope that we can discover a new way to think about money. And the irony of that is, I think we might find that it's actually a very old way to think about money. So I'm going to tell a story. My first point that I'm going to make, I'm going to tell you guys 3 ways that I learned how Blackjack saved me, okay? And you guys might not be able to relate to all the Blackjack points, but my hope is that you guys can take some of these away and translate them to where you are at your place in life. The first thing is amounts don't matter. Heart matters. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. When I first went into a casino, casinos were new for me, kind of like they might be for some of you. I grew up, like I said, in a religious household. And, why would you go to a casino? That wasn't where I would hung out, wasn't where I was interested in going. But I picked up a book on how to beat the game of Blackjack, and I thought, I could do this. The math seemed to make sense. And I didn't see any sin in it, so I went. And the first day I went, I sat down, and when you're counting cards, you're just adding and subtracting the number 1 a bunch of times, is what you're doing in your head. And this lady's sitting next to me, and she loses $200. It takes her like 30 minutes. She loses $200. And let me tell you, I was shocked and I was crushed. I couldn't believe, I was like, $200. You know, I don't know if you guys have this in your background, but for me, growing up in the church, I had always thought about money and how it equates to how many orphans it could feed in Africa. So when I saw $200, I'm doing like, you know, this math. I'm thinking, oh, that's 60 orphans for 72 days, right? And I'm thinking, what a waste that this lady she just put this money in. There's nothing good that came of it. I mean, how terrible. And I went home and I was just like, I was plagued by this thought. Should I not be in casinos? Maybe I could have spent the money better. Maybe she should have given it to a church. You know, I thought all these scenarios. And I realized in the midst of this that all the things we're thinking about had to do with the outside, because I started asking these questions. What if she went to a mall with that $200? What if she went to a ski slope? Would that have been better? And I realized, you know, we get caught up in exactly what the neon sign says or where it is. I don't think God really cared. If our heart is bent on worshiping ourselves, and if our heart is bent on selfish desire, then what's on the outside is far less important than what's on the inside. But I realized for myself, I only saw the outside. And it wasn't that my respect for casinos went up. I actually just started to see that selfishness goes to the mall with you. And it goes to the ski slope with you. And I stopped being able to justify the fact that I feel good about spending this $200 just because it's not in a casino. There's another example of this. This goes both ways. You can look at it with high numbers, and you can actually look at it with low numbers. So not only should we not be shocked on the high side, but there's a story of this lady who she went to the temple and she put 2 coins in the bowl, right? And no one seemed to really care. No one even noticed. It was like, big deal. What's the point? But Jesus got very, very excited about that. And he said, you guys aren't looking at the right thing. If you look at her heart, there's exciting stuff going on. This is the best show in town. What just happened right there, and you all missed it. Because they were counting numbers, right? They were looking at the quantity. And I always got caught up on which side I was on. So for example, you know, being a Christian or wanting to be a missionary, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to have a BMW. Look at those people with BMWs. You know, those cars cost high numbers. You know, or it might be a pair of jeans, or it might be a purse. Look how much that person paid for a purse, or look how much that person paid for that pair of jeans. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. I drive a Honda Civic. And my jeans are less than $10. And what I didn't realize was that I'm actually doing the exact same thing on a different side of a spectrum. I'm equally identifying myself by a quantity. And it's just as dangerous. And this is what I didn't realize, because being religious, and even if you're not religious, you could just be a hippie. We all can mock people that spend exorbitant amounts of money, whatever we consider exorbitant, on the rich things. But the problem is, we're identifying ourselves by a quantity the same way, not by the heart. And as a person of faith, we have to find our identity outside of earthly quantities. That's what I learned playing blackjack. The second thing, you can clap for that. That's a life-changing thing for me. The quantity thing, it slips in everywhere. The second thing I learned is that money is not scarce. This is going to take some explaining. I think it was the second time I went to Vegas. Vegas is scary for card counters, okay? Because you're sitting in these like little no-name tiny casinos in your hometown, and you go to Vegas, and there's the lights, and there's the surveillance cameras, and it's like big time. And I was sitting at this high roller table, and this guy was playing blackjack with pink chips, which is $500 a pop. And the cocktail waitress comes up and has his glass of wine, gives him his glass of wine, and he gives his $500 chip to the cocktail waitress as a tip. And I was like, whoa. I just felt like something like broke in the economic rule book or something. I couldn't figure out what happened. I was like, wait, was the service that great? Is he drunk? Is that generosity? Like, I think, and then I did the orphan calculation, in Africa again. And I realized that something felt really wrong to me about that, because in my mind, My viewpoint of money is that it's very scarce and there's a limited amount of it. And that guy tipping this person $500 is taking, a reasonable tip would have been $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, and the other $495 should have gone to orphans. So now that this $500 is here, there must be orphans starving because of that. Okay, that's the way I think. That's what was going through my head. That's why this felt really wrong to me. But there's a quick test to know if you believe money is scarce. Okay, and I think the question very simply is this. Do you find yourself saying, especially about other people, by the way, that's a lot of money? Okay, and this could be, like I said, this could be about anything. This could be about a pair of jeans. This could be about the car that your neighbor owns. It could be about the house that you want. You're like, that, and you point to some, number that's only in your head, and you declare that's a lot of money. Well, my question is it? What is a lot of money? If we were to ask what Scripture or what the Bible says about this, what is a lot of money to God? How does God see it? And there's a few just little snapshots we get of things that he says. I'll point out a few. One is that he says, I own a cattle on 1,000 hills, which seems to indicate to me that he's not so caught up in, quantities. There's not a lot to him. Another story, he talks about wiping out nations and building nations overnight. This happens, throughout all of history, we can see it. We live in kind of an unusual time where we feel pretty impenetrable as an American country, but historically, nations come and go very quickly. And it's not like, God's not like, whoa, that's crazy. That was a lot of bullets or dollars or armies. I don't think he sees the world that way. But for some reason, for me, I really got caught up because I thought people ought to make around 60,000, or missionaries ought to make around 30,000. And when I heard of 1 million, for some reason that number made me feel like certain things are impossible or should be attainable. Another story that I have with this is I was in an entrepreneur group in Seattle, and these guys were pretty well off. There was kind of high financial standards to be in this group. And this guy came and shared with our group. He goes, I've been struggling this week. I think I have a problem. He goes, I spent 3 days this week, I had a bar tab that was over $17,000. And we're like, yeah, you think? But you know what, guys? This very principle that I'm talking right now, this is why celebrities don't like to hang out with normal people. Because we're shocked by all the wrong things. When we heard that, you know what? The only thing I heard was $17,000. I didn't hear that this guy was lonely. I didn't hear that he was afraid. I didn't hear that he was selfish. I didn't hear that he didn't have friends. I couldn't hear those things. All I could hear was bro, 17 grand, I could buy a car with that. But a car wouldn't solve his problems. So as long as you believe that money is scarce, you're going to believe that money is going to be the solution to problems. And that's a dangerous path to go down. Because whatever you believe the solution to problems are, that's the advice that you're going to give to people. That's going to be the thing that determines who you feel sorry for and who you don't feel sorry for. And that's going to be the thing that you orient your entire life around. That's what I found. Without realizing it, even though I wasn't going after money, deep down I believed money would make me happy. I just decided I was choosing the Christian route that was bigger and better than money. But deep down I always believed, well, if I decide to go that route, I'll be happy. So money's not scarce, but do you know what is? Love is. And as long as we're thinking that money is the solution to problems, I don't think we'll ever, this is what I found for myself, I wasn't looking at the solution as being something that could actually solve someone's problem. Now, one of the ways I know that money is not the solution, or, by the way, and this is where it gets important, anything that money can buy. Okay? Because if you're thinking that a bigger house is going to make you more hospitable, what I've learned is people don't come over to my house to see my Pottery Barn furniture. They come over to my house because I have something that they cannot get. And that thing is love. And the way I know that love is the only scarce thing on this planet and is because God, if it would have been something that he could buy, he would have done anything but sent his son to die. That's how the story goes, right? That's the religious story we're all raised with. So this love, it cannot be purchased. But a lot of us, I think we spend our time believing that the true scarcity on this planet is something that you can buy or money. And it's strange that it took seeing exorbitant amounts of it at a blackjack table for me to learn this. But it was hard to trust pastors who were telling me, hey, money can't solve your problems. And I was like, hey, easy for you to say, you don't have any of it. But I saw this happen, the loneliest people, the saddest people, in the places where there was the most money. The third thing I learned playing blackjack is that you shouldn't focus on results, focus on beating the game. So blackjack is very simple. By the way, I'm not saying you should do this. This is not a blackjack endorsement. Side story, all these years of kind of being in churches and talking about blackjack and hearing people, there's two types of people we came across. One, they were like, that's wrong, that's bad, I don't want to hear it all. The other was like this pastor, they'd be like, oh yeah, cool, my dad plays craps. And I'm like, oh, no, that's not what I'm talking about. But when we taught people how to play blackjack, we taught them something very simple. We said, do not look at the amount of money you make. Focus on playing the game perfectly, and the money will come. Do you know the worst thing that could happen to a beginning blackjack player? They win. The absolute worst thing that can happen is someone who has, like, let's say they're 80% of skill. They walk in a casino and they win $1,000, $800, $200. It doesn't matter. Because you know what? They stop focusing on the only thing that's going to win them money in the long run. So for us, we had about a 1% advantage. Okay, what that means is if we played 200 sessions of blackjack, we would win 101 of them, and we would lose 99 of them. So 99 times out of 200, I left the casino feeling kind of crappy. At least if your results are the thing that you're looking to for your satisfaction, your immediate results. So people always ask me, what was your biggest win? And I actually don't remember. I was walking with my buddy. This was the last time I was in Vegas. We were walking past this casino. And he goes, did you know you won $55,000 at that place? And I was like, I believe you, but I don't remember. But I'll tell you what I do remember. I remember my biggest loss. It was Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. And I was there. And we used to wear outfits that had a lot of pockets. That was kind of the main goal. So I had 2 pockets here, 2 pockets here, and we always wear cargo shorts or pants. And all I know is I'm playing blackjack, and when you're cashing in, it takes a long time, and it's like every time you put money on the table, it's like a demoralization because you're losing. And all I know is I reached for my pocket, and I had no more 5 and 10 straps. And I was like, I just lost $86,000 in an hour. And I was like, oh my gosh. That was the last session that I played before we started the team. And we actually had to train our players for this inside and out, but let me tell you one of the principles I walked away with was if I would have just based the rest of my career, entrepreneurial or otherwise, on that session, I would have never played blackjack again. And this goes both ways, guys, both on looking at successes and failures. You know, we told our players high highs, lows lows. You have to know what to focus on to beat the game, and you have to ignore everything else. So, in that moment, I didn't know that the feeling I should have when I leave the casino was that I played the game, I beat the game, and I would go on to make millions of dollars. I didn't know this at the time because we started a team, we raised capital, we had investors. There's a kind of a whole story there that's featured in the documentary. But you have to focus on beating the game. When we were in Israel a few months ago, and the story has really stuck with me. We were with this tour guide named Aryeh, and he was a Jewish Christian. And he said that when he first came to Israel, there was no other Christians, which is problematic if you're of marrying age and you want to find a Christian woman to marry. So all of his friends were saying, hey, you got to leave Israel to go find a Christian woman to marry if you want to get married. And he said, no, I feel like I need to stay in Israel. And they said, well, you're not going to be able to get married. And he said this line, it just stuck with me. He says, that is not my problem. That is God's problem. And what I look at, when I look at the Bible and I say, what does it look like? Let's take this translation. It's going to be a jump. But let's say we don't want to beat the game of blackjack. We want to beat the game of life, okay? But we want to beat it in the right way with faith, integrity. What does it look like to beat the game of life? Well, when I read the Bible, I see things like faith, like trust, like recklessness, like love. And what I've noticed is that when you focus on those things, and this is, like I said, this is for these characters in this book. We have to decide if this is going to be true for us. But when we focus on those things, the results take care of themselves. And I'll tell you what, guys, what I've learned as an entrepreneur and a blackjack player and a man is that popularity or results are a terrible, terrible indicator of lasting value. And if you question that, take a look at the porn industry. Okay? A lot of popularity there. But we cannot use numbers or popularity to ask this question of how do we beat the game. It's very, very distracting. So just in wrapping this up, I shared that we lived off $10 a day, and there was years that I went on to make more than $1 million a year. And one of the interesting things about comparing those two parts of my life was there was a time in my life when I was making way more money than I thought I should, and there was a time when I was making way less than I thought I should. But maybe you can guess which was which. It was actually the opposite of what you might think. When I was making $10 a day, I was asking this question, man, what about those orphans? Can I get by with 8? Maybe I should get by. So maybe I shouldn't eat. And I'll tell you what, it was never enough. And when I went on to the millionaire side, the same conversation was happening. It was just bigger and different. Guess what? $1 million, I was hanging out with people with $5 and $10 million. And this can be very spiritual too, by the way. You know, it's not just to buy Ferraris, but I was thinking, oh man, surely I could feed more orphans this way, and I could build out a family thing here, and I could make a big impact for the kingdom this way, and I can, you know, it was a lot of it was very good motives. But what I realized on that side was that I was in the exact same place where I started. And going down either of those roads was much more identical than I thought. So what I was looking for, you know, what I realized I needed, and what I actually think we need, you guys, these aren't mild differences in how we see money. This isn't like a tweak. This isn't saying, hey, you might have given 10%, like let's buck up here and let's bump it to 15 this next quarter. This is a different way to see money. And it took casinos where I had divorced myself from, what I love about that video that we watched is the guy said, I realized money is just money. And he said at one point it was like Monopoly money. I actually think that's probably how God sees our little dollar bills. He's not like, whoa, Ferrari. Whoa, I can save Africa now. He can save it at any time. But he chooses to partner with us. So what we can't do is enter into the game and be like, whoa, get distracted by all the little pieces of paper around. It's not the point. So admittedly, I've lived a ridiculous life. Not everyone has had a documentary made about them, I understand. So you might be asking, well, how does this apply to me, a normal person in a normal business or a normal life or tomorrow? And that's an important question. Where can we start? Where can we start at this? And there's a story that brings me a lot of hope, and this is what I'm going to end with. And it's a story, it's in all 4 Gospels, and it's of a lady that comes up to Jesus, and she dumps perfume on his feet. And we can see all 3 of these points that I've mentioned in the story. And the first one, the quantity, the disciples were obsessed with the quantity. They said that was a year's worth of income. They were thinking efficiency, they were thinking productivity, they were thinking stewardship, right? Those are good things. They can be, at least. And they were doing the orphan equation that I was doing. But Jesus looked at her heart, and he got excited. And his answer, it blows me away, because to me, it kind of gives me hope for how I can live tomorrow. And he says this, and it's the answer to the last point of how do we beat the game, okay? Because he says to her, he says, anytime you hear the gospel, you're going to hear this story about this woman. This is it. Being passionately in love with God and using the money for that, it causes you to lose sight of all the numbers, all the games, all the identity and everything else. So I'm really excited to have had this experience in Blackjack, and I'm so thankful. This team that I ran was years ago, and there haven't been many people who have had the courage to allow this type of conversation to enter into a church in a place like this. And this is probably the most exciting aspect of Blackjack, or my life, or that aspect that I took away and that I'm happy to share with people. And to be able to talk about it with you guys is such a privilege, and I really hope that as we enter into our day tomorrow, or as we leave this conference today, we can start to ask some of these bigger questions about what is money, what's it for, And as we talk about quantities, they can be important. I'm really, really not trying to say that spreadsheets or quantities or any of these things don't matter at all. But we have to know where they fit. Because if they start to become the way that we identify ourselves, the way that we drive ourselves or anything like that, we've already lost. So thank you, guys.
Awesome. Have a seat. Now, some of you I know might be thinking right now, now why did this guy come up? It was interesting. Let me tell you what our heart behind this was. It was this. Gosh, I've always been to a lot of conferences, and I've been the guy who leaves at the end, and now I'm kind of deflated when people leave, but that's all right. We're going to soldier on here. We had Wendy speak earlier because just having a money conversation is a reality when you're looking at faith and business. And we just find that we don't have a lot of money conversations in faith environments, and so therefore, by default, money becomes only the scorecard, if you will, of whether or not I'm winning, the scorecard of whether or not my idea is good, the scorecard about whether or not I'm working as hard as I should, the scorecard about whether or not God loves me, all this kind of stuff, or simply a thing for us to feel pleasure by, or a thing that makes my dreams come true, or whatever. These are the default things that we tie into. And I don't know what your philosophy of money is, but we wanted to push you on getting a philosophy of money. You've got to wrestle with money. It's beyond, I hope I can have something successful and have more. You've got to wrestle with it. And when I heard Ben's story, I was like, whoa, whoa. And I just want us to end our first day with a little more conversation with Ben. It helps us go, what are my financial motivations? What is my philosophy of money? What am I doing with this? And I found you to be really intriguing. So let me just pepper you with some questions. And there's no specific point or conclusion I want to leave us with. I want us to just be peppered with ideas about money that Ben has pretty healthily spiritually formed, and just put those kernels of sand in our mind and see what might come out. Maybe a pearl will. So first of all, Ben, do you have central heat in your house?
Central heat. We do, but my wife and some of our friends wish that we use our AC more than we did.
Okay. Let me ask you, do you have heat in your children's rooms in the wintertime?
We do.
You do. Are they as warm as they should be?
Should is a relative term. They probably wish at times, but kids get used to things. You know?
Ben, why are you making this hard for me? Why are you making this hard for me?
I
know
didn't
exactly.
know what questions
you're
you're going
exactly.
No. Less than they'd like.
And why is that, Ben?
Well, I think one of the things that we've realized, we try and live our lives intentionally. We believe our house is the Lord's. We believe that the things inside of it and the things that we use are for the Lord and for a purpose. I don't always know what that purpose is, because I think there's a lot of purposes that are just handed to us. Like, this is what a house is. A house makes you look a certain way or gives you a certain status symbol. And it's tough when you start asking these questions. Some of these things no one had 30 years ago. And this could be iPad, or this could be central air, this could be a text message on your phone. So I really struggle with are these things helping me depend on God more or not? And we don't know the answer.
So you save a lot of money. Let me say what you should be saying right now. You save a lot of money on your heating bill in the wintertime because you want to get your family to be drawn to one source of heat in the living room so you can spend time with one another. And it's not a penny. Okay, that's what you should be saying right now. Come on.
Let me say that. Okay, so we have a fireplace. I didn't know what you knew here, Brian.
Come on, just answer the question honestly.
We have a fireplace in our living room, and what we decided is that what I noticed with heat in our house is that when we keep our house warm, everyone just goes on off to a little corner. But it's not even about money. It's just that heat doesn't help our family accomplish the goals that we want. One of our primary family goals is to be together. So we realized putting a fireplace in one room and then shutting off the heat in the other rooms for most of the day gets people down to that room, and then we hang out. But, the fireplace costs more money than all the rest of the heat anyways.
I think it's fascinating. I mean, the only people who would shut off heat to their rooms are those who are saving money. You have plenty of money, and you're intentionally shutting off it because, not to save money, but because you want to use it to bring people together.
And this is what's really important, and this is what I feel like the religious trap is the world says more, and Christians can just say less. That's the easy answer. And it's not an answer. Because what happens when God tells you to spend more? And that's what I could never do on myself, on my kids, on other people. And one of the ways, I think being a cheapskate is as dangerous as being an overspender, extravagant. But in the church, missionaries and Christians and religious folk, it's filled with cheapskates. And it's the same amount of bondage. They're spending, their vision of money is just as far from God's, I believe, than people that are spending ridiculously on themselves in it's a different variety of spending on yourself. But, hanging on to money is not, there's this kind of phrase, I don't know if you guys have heard that song, love isn't love until you give it away. I think it's a Michael W. Smith song. Money is very similar to that. We teach people there's no such thing as saved money. There's money you spend now, and there's money you spend later. You have to learn to spend it. And this is the economy of love, too. You don't hang on to love. And God had all sorts, the man in the desert, all these things. He wanted people to use what they were given.
Yeah.
And so what I found is with our kids, just as an example, we thought, okay, they're spending stupidly and they're saving. Always teach your kids to save. That was like the pinnacle of a child's wisdom was saving. But it's not, because guess what? Someday they're going to have to spend it. And I realized that I was teaching my kids how to save, but really it's because I was afraid to spend, and deep down they were afraid to spend well. They didn't know how. We didn't know how. So we've been trying to learn as a family that the question that I have is, how do we spend well?
You said something to me that was pretty profound. You said studies show really clearly that once you get past $70,000 in income, money does not make you happy. Studies show it over and over and over again. And yet, we don't believe that, and it's like not believing that 2 packs of cigarettes a day makes you more prone to cancer. I mean, we hear that. In fact, I say that, and we're going, oh, no. It's like trying to tell us that 2 packs a day won't be bad for you. Blow that out more.
Yeah, it's easy to say, but the answer is when you have to look at the proof. You have to look at how you schedule your life. Work, I think especially for dads, maybe it's just because I'm a dad, but I think work for dads, it's an epidemic. It's the number one driving obsession. We cancel family events. We cancel relational things. We cancel, church or religious or any time. We build our entire lives around it. So while someone might say, well, I don't care about money. If you orient your entire life around your job or your career identity or your path to money, to me, it's.
Of course you are.
Of course you are.
Of course.
And you might not be.
Well, I have a cheap car, so no, I'm not about money.
And you might not think that you care about more than $70,000, but like I said, if you look at our lives, a lot of our lives are built around proving to ourselves, proving to our parents, proving to the world that we will never go broke. And that's one of the benefits. Professional gambling, it gave me this really unique slant life, because these guys were broke every other day, some of them, and they didn't care.
How many investors did you have in your gambling business?
We probably had 40 at one point.
40. And what was the profile of these 40 investors?
Mostly friends and family. Some family that might not like to be named. Actually.
Okay. And how did you return a profit for your investors?
The first 3 years, I think we returned about 100%. So they gave us $100,000. We gave them $100,000 profit. We were killing it the first 3 years.
Great. What happened after the first 3 years?
Well, it kind of leveled out. I think overall we probably returned, I don't know, I'm not the numbers guy, but I'd say about 25%.
Okay.
Over the course of the 8 years.
And people in the church you were going to at that time, did they know about this business or just your real estate business?
No, okay, so that's it. They knew about that. We got in a lot of conversations, because this was really important to me. I was kind of going through the diaconate process to be a deacon. I was in church leadership, and I was like the leader guy. So when I got into this, and all these other leaders from the local area, all these other pastors and church planners were all in on it, it became this really big thing. And what it was very much a distraction in one way. So in that regards, it was I can understand why people had problems with it. But what I think what you're getting at, what I've told people is it's really crazy that in the same time I was buying real estate. I bought $1 million worth of real estate. And this is from all the books that I was reading. They were investment properties. They weren't, vacation homes. And not one person warned me or talked to me about that. Everyone had something to say about Blackjack. But when I look at the real gambling in my life, it was the stuff that I did in the open air, And people, in fact, they congratulate you. They come across and say, whoa, you got a loan for a $500,000 house. You must be responsible. And they'd ask me like financial advice just because I got a loan. And now everyone has a problem with blackjack because it involves like cards. But it was way more mathematically sound and responsible, the blackjack stuff, than the real estate stuff.
So how are these lessons translating into you as an entrepreneur? How many businesses have you owned?
Jeez. I think maybe, if you include like my t-shirt company in high school, like probably 20 or something.
Okay.
I think like 18 of them have failed.
So that's encouraging, huh? That's good. So your 19th was Blackjack or something like that, or?
Actually, yeah, probably 17th.
Okay, so just final stuff here to push us out on. How do you see the average entrepreneur or the average person not treating money appropriately, that we need to treat it differently? Or if we came and worked for you in one of your businesses, how would we notice that you're operating it differently? Just push us a little bit beyond what you're going to get in the standard sermon or in the standard business school lecture.
Well, I've heard this a little bit, but people, our lives are driven by money, and even by the customer. We might not say money, but if we say the customer, or if we say ROI, or all these fancy terms for it, it's money. It's popularity. And the best ideas out there in the entrepreneur world, and I think actually in the faith world, they're not driven by money. They may result in money, but they're not driven by money. And that's where you're being driven by money when you constantly prioritize work over passion projects. And I don't mean passion in a silly way. I actually mean what our calling is. I think some of us here were made to do amazing things that right now we're not getting paid to do. So guess what? We don't do them. Or we squeeze them in 5 minutes, but we all know how that goes at the end of the night or the last point of the weekend. And some of those things, if you look at the most successful entrepreneurs ever, they were the people that prioritized even those things, the true value creation in the world. And if the world never rewards it, honestly, too, I'd be happy enough with that, just with God's approval. But I actually think that's the biggest problem I see with entrepreneurship, is that we prioritize popular opinion over what our calling is.
Fascinating. What do you think? Yeah, you can clap for that. That's good stuff. Last question. If you were able to drop inside of one of our businesses, what are you fairly certain that you would see that you would counsel us against?
What would I counsel you against?
Yeah, or just what do you think that the average person is spending money on in their business, not doing in their business, that comes from a faulty perception of money?
I think the biggest thing that I've seen is, at the end of the day, nothing exists outside of relationships. Relationships with humans and relationships with God. And somehow, when we get into business lingo talk, we can use all these fancy languages like company and C Corp and S Corp and LLC and this and that, investors and VC, and we forget that it's just people. It's all just people. There's nothing more than people. When God looks down, he just sees people. I don't think he sees our piece of paper. And our entire businesses can get oriented around missions and ideas and flows and patterns that aren't loving to people. And I think at the end of the day, you see all these successful guys, whether it's the Steve Jobs or myself or my grandpa, or people, you get to the end of your life, and what are the regrets? It's not that you made another iPad, or it's not that, they said we didn't spend more time with our family. So it's never more than about relationships, ever.